Let's call our organizational meeting to order, and I'll ask the treasurer to call the roll.
Mr. Baker?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Ms. Gibbs?
Here.
Mr. Ragland?
Here.
Ms. Reyes? And you have a quorum, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer, and I'd like to ask Superintendent Stanford to lead us in the pledge this evening, if he doesn't mind. Everyone, please be upstanding.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so let me just briefly share what we're going to do during the organizational meeting. So we will, after we adopt the agenda, we will vote to appoint a president pro tem, since we currently do not have a board president. We will then have our election of officers and ceremonial swearing in. We'll then approve our 2019 calendar. We will then take up a resolution related to evaluating the board's direct reports, and then we will adjourn this meeting. The regular business meeting will convene directly after the adjourning of this meeting. Having said that, is there a motion that we adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And now I would like to accept nominations for President Pro Tem. Is there a nomination to serve as President Pro Tem? Ms. Gibbs.
Gary Baker, Service President Pro Tem.
Second.
Any other nominations? All right. Mr. Treasurer, I'll ask you to call the roll, and when you vote, state the name of the individual you are voting for, please.
Mr. Brown?
Fair enough.
Mr. Cole?
Yes, Gary Baker.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, Baker.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Mr. Baker?
Baker.
Mr. Baker, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's move on then to board matters. The first is election of president. So is there a nomination for president? Ms. Gibbs.
I move that Gary Baker serve as President of the Columbus Board of Education.
Thank you. Any other nominations for president? Okay. Mr. Treasurer, please call the roll, and I'll ask again when you vote to say the name of the individual you're voting for, or you can also say abstain if you so choose.
Mr. Cole?
Baker, yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland?
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Mr. Baker?
Baker.
And Mr. Brown?
No.
I'll record that as an abstain, if that is okay. It's not really a vote, this is a voice vote by name. We'll figure it out.
Whatever, that's fine.
Okay. In any case, it's 4 votes for Mr. Baker, and he is elected president of the board.
Thank you very much. Let's now take up the vice president position. Is there a nomination for vice president? Mr. Ragland.
Move that Mr. Michael Cole serve as Vice President of the Columbus City Schools Board of Education.
Very good. And Mr. Cole, are you willing to serve?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Any other nominations for vice president this evening? Okay, Mr. Treasurer, would you call the roll? And again, I'll ask you when you vote to say a name of who you're voting for, or you may say abstain as well.
Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland?
Yes, Mr. Cole.
Mr. Baker?
Cole.
Mr. Brown?
No, and recorded however you're required to record.
Thank you. Mr. Cole?
Yes, Cole.
That's 4 votes for Mr. Cole, and he is elected vice president of the board.
Thank you very much. Now, we will have swearings in for Mr. Cole and myself. And let's Mr. Treasurer, would you mind joining me at the podium? We'll do President first. Would you mind holding my Bible? Thank you.
Okay. I, and state your name,
I, Gary Baker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as President of the Columbus Board of Education
discharge my duties as the President of the Columbus Board of Education
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and hereinafter to be enacted.
and hereinafter to be enacted.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Michael D. Cole,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as Vice President
discharge my duties as Vice President
of the Columbus Board of Education
of Columbus Board of Education
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and hereafter to be enacted.
and hereafter to be enacted.
Congratulations. You are now
Thank you,
Vice
sir.
President of the Board.
Thank you.
Now, as is our custom, we'll allow the newly elected leadership to share some brief remarks. I'll go first, if you don't mind. Thank you, colleagues, for entrusting me with the honor and responsibility of being your president for a sixth time. It is truly a privilege to serve, and I hope you will allow me a moment to share thanks and my personal aspirations. I still believe, as I did more than a decade ago when I first sat at this table, that service on the Board of Education is one of our community's highest callings. We directly impact our city's most precious gift, our children and their futures. This tremendous responsibility to our students and their families comes with an important obligation to every stakeholder who invests in our mission, to our teachers, all of our staff, our administrators, direct reports, and our partners in public, private, and nonprofit sectors, and to district residents who elected us and sent us here to conduct their business. They expect us to be their voices on the issues that matter most to the education, safety, and welfare of all of our children. As Ohio's largest district, we have the opportunity, and I believe the obligation, to be a leading voice across Ohio at the State House and even in our nation's capital. And this year, as outside voices, new and old, take aim and issue at how we prepare our young people for success, I hope that we as a board remain steadfast in our commitment to integrity, respect, trust, compassion. I first spoke of my vision for governing with integrity when I was elected president for the first time in 2014. Central tenets of that vision include a focus on academic achievement and undertaking our duties with a sense of urgency. These goals are perhaps even more important now than they were then. Let us build upon the collaborations that allowed us to successfully advocate for changes to Ohio's graduation requirements, giving our current juniors and seniors additional pathways to earn a diploma and prove they are ready for success. We must continue the call for a valid statewide method of evaluating student performance to replace the current fatally flawed state report card. a new system that truly reflects what goes on in our schools and classrooms, one that doesn't favor some districts over others and provides an easy-to-understand scale that doesn't mislead parents and other consumers. With our new governor and our new Speaker of the House, who's already talked about supporting bipartisanship when it comes to K-12 education, let us push the State House to finally and fully fund all schools in Ohio. Don't forget that our state funding is being shortchanged by as much as $100 million each year because of arbitrary funding caps implemented by a General Assembly that fails to live up to its constitutional requirement to secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state. The state's ongoing reliance on a funding system that has remained largely unchanged since it was declared unconstitutional more than 20 years ago leads to a shortfall in resources that negatively impacts all of our students. Fair and full funding is needed now. And finally, as a district joined by its stakeholders and community, as well as other districts and affiliated groups, we must be shoulder to shoulder in standing up to the very real threat by those at the State House who would rather see our schools run by a state-appointed manager with the authority to ignore our teachers, skilled staff, and the voices of our community. Every one of us, I believe, recognizes the sense of urgency in continuing to improve the academic outcomes of our students and removing the looming shadow of academic distress. I believe this should remain our focus. But this specter of potential state takeover should never have been created in the first place. We know the best decisions in a child's education are always made at the local level and by locally elected boards of education who truly are the voices of the community they serve. As I look ahead, I have great optimism for the work this board will accomplish, engaging the individual talents and expertise we each bring to the table, working together and in collaboration and mutual respect with all of our staff, including our new superintendent, to fulfill our mission that says each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as a citizen in a global community. Colleagues, let us start this new calendar year joined again in that mission and in our spirit of success. Thank you. Mr. Vice President, have you any comments you'd like to share?
Yes, Mr. President, just very briefly. I first and foremost want to thank my colleagues for their support, their honesty, and their candor. I once read some time ago as a child that should one have the faith the size of a mustard seed that you could move mountains. I've had the opportunity to experience that in many ways, not only just in my personal life, but even working with you all in the last 5 years. We've done a considerable amount of work together. A lot of work that has involved finding new talent that will lead our district from March on. Finding new talent that will join us on this board to help us make the necessary endeavors to improve facilities in our schools, to ensure that academic achievement is not only first priority, but also something that happens for us incredibly in a way that sustains this district for the years to come and ensures success for our children. I didn't really prepare any thoughts or any speech. I just wanted to speak from my heart and say that I take this job incredibly seriously. Some of us who live in the community, who live outside the community, but consider themselves stakeholders to this organization and this august body of leaders, sometimes don't understand the will and way of this work and what leads and drives us in our decision-making. But rest assured, please, rest assured that academic achievement and our students' academic success is the primary driver, specifically for me. I will not put that second to anything. I will not put the necessary resources our children need second either. One of my favorite comedians, Sinbad, he said, when you're dating, you know, the lady you're dating, everything seems peachy, she's doing everything for you, but when you get married, things gonna change. Well, in 2019, And not to say that I dated this district. I've been wed to it since 2013. But in 2019, things gonna change. With that, I thank you for your time and thank you for your support again and your candor, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, colleagues. Let's move on then to item 4.3, and that is approval of the 2019 meeting calendar. Is there a motion to adopt the 2019 meeting calendar, colleagues?
Motion? Yes.
Yes, is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Treasurer, would you mind waiting just a moment? Thank you. Discussion, colleagues. Ms. Gibbs?
Baker, I just want to make sure that on this calendar, we take note that the November 6th date is not Election Day, and that we've moved that to reflect being closed on Election Day in all of our school buildings. That's correct?
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
That's a motion?
We have a motion. That was just a comment.
No, that's
Mr.
correct.
Treasurer?
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Motion carried.
Thank you. And colleagues, I just want to remind you on 4.4, we plan to have a discussion on committee structure at our retreat on the 29th of January, and so it wouldn't be my intention to make any appointments this evening, and I think we had talked about that before, so we have the opportunity to talk through committee structure prior to making any appointments. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, thank you. 4.5, resolution to adopt the evaluation schedule for direct reports. Is there a motion that we adopt that resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Discussion on the evaluation schedule, colleagues. Mr. Brown?
Simply want to check with our direct reports and make sure that they're good dates for them as well. That may be something you've already done, but if not, we can find out right now.
All right, well, fair enough. Direct reports, any questions on those dates that we have set for your evaluations? I do believe these are the same dates that we instituted last year. So if there are no questions, thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, we have a motion before us. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Colleagues, thank you. The chair will now entertain a motion that we adjourn the organizational meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Colleagues, we stand adjourned. Does anyone need a quick break before we continue? All right, very well then, let's go on. And I would like to call to order our regular business meeting. And Mr. Treasurer, would you like to call the roll again?
Baker?
Present?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Vice President Cole?
Here.
Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland?
Here.
Ms. Reyes? You have a quorum, Mr. President?
Thank you very much. I'll briefly read through our agenda so we all know the work we have before us. We will hear from someone who is here to provide public comment. We do have one speaker this evening. We will then hear reports from superintendent and internal auditor and treasurer, after which we will take up our consent agenda. We will then hear announcements, points of pride from board members, after which we will recess into executive session. Upon completion of executive session, we will return here to these chambers to potentially consider a resolution, after which we will adjourn. Having said that, is there a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
And is there a second? Mr. Ragland? Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland? Motion carried.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe we have any board recognitions this evening. So let's move into public comment. We do have one speaker. So I'll call your name and I'll ask you to come to the podium, and you'll have 4 minutes. The speaker is Cassandra Freeland. Topic, condition of Columbus Alternative High School. Board action requested, respond to our requests and evaluate the condition of cause. Good evening. Happy New Year.
Thank you. President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer Bohoric, Auditor Smith, Superintendent Stanford, members of the board, Happy New Year. I'm here again to talk to you about the building conditions at Columbus Alternative High School, and I'll try not to repeat any of my previous testimony. The building situation reached a turning point for me personally when our students and staff were evacuated November 1st due to an explosion that occurred when water leaked into the underground vaults that house the electrical transformers. That was our third electrical issue this year. I reached out to the City of Columbus, who provides electricity to the building, because I was not feeling great about sending my children there when it rains. And a gentleman named Doug called me back. He said the city replaced all 3 transformers. He explained that the district owns and maintains the electrical vaults, unlike the other vaults the city maintains, which they own and maintain. And there's a sump pump in the vaults that should come on when it rains. The reason for the explosion and the evacuation is that the sump pump was not maintained and water got to a main power cable. He also offered that this was not the first time it's happened at Cause. The same thing happened 2 years ago, but it happened during the night. And I'm glad that staff and students were evacuated safely. I'm confident in our administration's ability to keep students safe in the face of an emergency, but I find it unacceptable that I got this text message from my son that said, "School had some kind of accident, a gas leak or a fire. Adam and I are fine. We're waiting on the bus to leave." And this picture. And yep, my heart stopped, and he sent me that because he knew I worried about his brother. So I'd like to quote Facilities Task Force Chair Perry Sabity, who said in addressing this board in September that the need at Cause and a few other schools is so deep it cannot be addressed by moving boundaries. She said that the facilities master plan is a long-term plan for addressing this, but clearly resources are needed to address these critical issues now. December 7th, we held our winter music concert, during which families found both ants and a dead roach in the auditorium. I could see that students had been eating in there, so I cleaned up all the crumbs and as many ants as I could. My son said that some students eat lunch in the auditorium. Not all students fit in the cafeteria, and some students have no lunch period. They spend it on jazz band or chorale, so they eat on the go. It was also hot in the auditorium, sweltering in fact. The fans we use in hot weather were running on a day it's 34 degrees outside. We celebrated our 40th anniversary at the gala on December 20th, and thank you, Board Member Gibbs and Dr. Stanford, for joining us for that celebration. As you both recall, the auditorium was hot again. At that event, I went to use the back bathroom near the cafeteria because I have long legs and that door closes, at least when it works, because the last time I went there I had to do the old hold the door shut with one hand. This time, I was really glad to find that the door shut, but here was the toilet seat. Part of it was missing. And I had to use this one anyway because the other toilet wouldn't flush. And there was a staff member in the bathroom with me with her young son, and he couldn't flush the potty when he was done, and he was in there because the boys' bathroom wasn't working. And I'm offering you these stories not just to complain about the building, but to echo what she said about the need here is really deep, because I would imagine that heading into both those events, the building was in its best condition, and this is still the result. In 2011, I met with Dr. Jean Harris along with a group of parents and staff from Indianola Informal K-8. At that time, Indianola was the only school without a high school feeder pattern. Now there are several others, and so we were talking about high schools. And she said that we couldn't have a high school continuum for our students then because she had too many high schools, and she needed to close about 5 high schools. So it's been almost 8 years, and even though we have a facilities master plan, not a lot has changed. And that makes it even more important that the district make a genuine effort to improve the building conditions at Cause and not just conduct a review of current real estate and say there's nothing available. I'd like to tell you one more story really quickly. Just before Thanksgiving, it came to my attention that my older son did not have a working locker and hadn't this year. He carried all his stuff around with him all day, backpack, lunchbox, coat, which explains why we lost a coat. I suggested to him that the weather is finally getting cold because it was hot for a long time, and he was going to need to wear his heavy coat to the bus stop, so he ought to get a working locker. And I'm happy to say he went to school, he went to the office, and he got some help, and he came home with a working locker. But what struck me about that was not that his locker didn't work, because I'm sure every building has a certain number of interoperable lockers, and I would venture to guess CAUS has more than most. But what struck me about it was that he thought things at this school just don't work, and it wasn't worth trying. And it's not right for staff and students to feel that way. They should feel like they can have a building where they have a locker that works or their bathrooms work. CAUS families have asked the district to conduct an audit of the building, but we received no response. We formed a committee to advocate for better physical conditions. We're open to all options, and we have no interest in pitting one school community against another. So we would ask that you respond to our request. Also, our Civic Education and Leadership Academy students are planning a community conversation to discuss building conditions later this month. There hasn't been a date set for that yet, but we would ask that the district join our community conversation at that time. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Colleagues, are there any clarifying questions for the speaker, Mr. Brown?
Yes, Ms. Freeland, I appreciate your being here again. I share your concerns, and I mean, I agree, and I'm disappointed that the board has not acted thus far, but I will do what I can to see that we address the issues as early as possible. I'm not going to go through any particular issues. It's bigger than that.
President Baker, Board Member Brown, thank you.
Thank you. Just two things. One, can you share that photo with us again? Can I see that
Yep.
photo?
Would you like to have it?
Yes, please.
Okay, I
The
can
one
email it
with
to you
the,
also.
with the, I couldn't make it out if it was a truck or,
Oh, this?
yes, the one you
Oh, that's the
noted.
school buses, and that is facing Weber Road. It's on McGuffey facing Weber. They're waiting to go home.
Okay.
I
would-
can either leave this or email it to you or both.
That would be fine if you left it with us so
Sure.
that we can see that, and the one with the toilet, please. So you mentioned earlier that our students felt as though that there was no response to, or would not be any response to, any request for needed resources in the school, i.e. a working locker, something to that effect. Is there an idea of what the protocol has been, what your experience has been with regard to that?
President Baker, Board Member Cole, I can't speak specifically, but I can tell you that they would offer me, I have about 8 kids that come to my house every Friday night, and I love having them. And so some information I get just from listening to them, and some I get from talking to them. But the clocks don't work in a lot of the rooms. The day they went back to school after they were evacuated, the bells didn't work all day, so it was just sort of, oh, you know, let's go, next class. And things are just not routinely in working order, and I think they just have come to accept that and given up, some of them, that, you know, it's not worth trying. Things just don't work here.
I thank you for that. Mr. President, I would like to offer that just, of course, the administration take note of this and give us some sort of idea as to if there any deeper understanding of what that particular issue or set of issues are at CAUS. That would be very helpful for us. I thank you so much for coming. Thank
President
you.
Baker, Vice President Cole, thank you.
For joining us this evening, and thank you for giving us your testimony. Two things for me, if we could be made aware of the date of the community conversation and what the details are, I'd like for myself and all of my colleagues to at least know when you will be gathering to have this discussion. And secondly, based off what Board Member Cole has stated, I've also visited several schools in the district since I've been around here as a board member, and I've made a point to speak with some of our maintenance staff within our buildings. I would like to know general processes behind when requisitions are filled. You know, what happens if, say, a heating unit is making an excessive amount of noise to the point where a teacher cannot teach within a classroom, or a locker needs to be fixed and we need new equipment. What is the process like for our maintenance staff to make a requisition to get those types of things fixed if they cannot do them internally? What is the turnaround time? Please give me some examples of what those processes look like so that I can have an idea of when folks can be expecting for things to get fixed. I think Board Member Cole's question was more than appropriate, and I would like a holistic view of that process, if that is possible, Dr. Stanford. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, Ms. Freeland, for coming. One of my points of pride would have been the 40th anniversary, you'll hear about it, of COS and that amazing night of both current student and alumni performances who've been in COS for years past. And as you know, my entire family has attended. There's been a student in my family in COS one of every 4 decades. And one of the challenges, and I think also one of the accolades, is accolades to our facilities department, because they have done an incredible job of patchwork. It is an elementary school building that we keep adding patches and fixes and alterations to make it a high school. It was never built to be a high school. It was never built to hold high school students, and it was never built to hold so many high school students. So this is the largest student body COS has ever had. And when I went there, there were maybe 550 students, which is a lot different wear and tear on elementary toilets than 857 or so. So just the sheer number of increased population, the deterioration of the building, I know our staff have been looking at it. I know that you're going to bring us back a report, and in our work session, we're going to talk about it. It was 30 degrees. It was burning up in the auditorium. I mean, it was literally burning up. So I know that as we continue to explore, that we're going to look at how we make a fix, but we just need a new building. I mean, at the end of the day, they need a new building. It is extremely hot, and unlike other buildings that were built for that population, COS was never built for people over 4 feet high, right? It just wasn't. It wasn't built for today's children. It wasn't definitely ready for Similac. So we have to think about, and I know Mr. Odom and his team, they have been working on this since it's come to fruition, but we are well aware. I have a 2018 graduate, so well aware of bringing a coat and a fan and a tank top and boots all in one day, because you don't know what temperature it's going to be, and to look at how we look at the overall structure. But I feel very comfortable in saying we just need a new building. Like, we can't, to keep patching and to add another fix and another fix is like putting Play-Doh on sand, because eventually another part of the building is going to deteriorate. But we know we have a team working on it, and our work session is on the 23rd. So I'm sure the COS community, as well as other communities, will be there to look at what we're going to do about that. And our other challenges we have across the district with overcrowding and modules and our continual piece. But I thank you for your continued advocacy for the COS students and for any students. And we're in there firsthand, and you would think it would be, you think it would be cooler, but it really isn't. But just know that while the report isn't ready, it's because the study is still being done, and you know, through the break. And I'm sure our staff isn't just like, oh, we're not going to pay attention to this. Everyone is actively looking at options, but ultimately a new building just has to be in the plan. And however that takes hold, and what we can do in the interim to make it manageable, but I don't think it will ever be fully acceptable until it is a building built for high school students that supports the academic program of COS. And that's theater, that's music, that's dance, that's a courtyard, and all the things that are very unique to that building, in the same way that we have built other high schools specifically for their program. So thank you very much, and we're all looking forward to getting that report and getting information about our options in the short term, and understanding how soon we can get to that long-term solution of a new building.
President Baker, Board Member Gibbs, thank you. And President Baker, Board Member Ragland, we will certainly let you know when that community conversation is happening. Dr. Tina Pierce is arranging it, and once I hear from her, I can follow up for you. And nothing I said was intended to be a criticism of the maintenance staff. it was really aimed at the things you outlined, Board Member Gibbs, about the condition of the building and its unsuitability for adult-sized bodies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freeland. All right, that is our only speaker for this evening. So let's move on then to reports from our direct reports. So first, I'll call on our Superintendent, Dr. Stanford. The floor is yours.
Thank you, President Baker, and members of the Board of Education. In most settings, I would begin with a greeting of Happy New Year. But in our profession, saying Happy New Year in January is a bit of a misnomer. In fact, we are more than halfway through this school year, the 2018-19 school year, with less than 100 academic days left for our students. And though we've accomplished much in these past 4.5 months to get our young people ready for success, it is now time to help our students turn that preparation into action. Tonight, I'd like to provide an update to the board on 3 very important initiatives that my team and I have been hoping every employee, stakeholder, and partner in our district will support and share. These are 3 initiatives tied directly to our strategic plan and rooted in our efforts to provide every one of more than 51,000 students across our district with the opportunity for a high-quality education. This first update is on our Academic Surge initiative and the upcoming Saturday Super Reader Academy. In our elementary reading surge, more than 350 teachers across our district have completed intense professional development aimed at giving them the practical classroom strategies for helping more of our youngest readers who struggle to meet and exceed the requirements of the 3rd grade reading guarantee. We've also hired and put in place nearly 24 part-time reading coaches that will work directly with our elementary 2nd and 3rd grade readers to become better readers. Those same 2nd and 3rd graders have also been invited to take part in our supercharged 8-week Saturday Super Reader Academy. The online sign-ups for the Academy are going well, with a big boost in the last week of nearly 200 students registering, as families receive reminders online, on the phone, in the mail, and now in person at their schools. Remember, even if a student is not struggling with reading, we welcome them to attend the Academy to accelerate their reading abilities and level up their performance. We're asking our partners in the community who interact with our 2nd and 3rd grade families to make sure that those families are aware of the Saturday Super Reader Academy. So please visit our website to get the information and spread it throughout the community. The first Saturday Super Reader Academy is January 26th. And my challenge to our team is to fill every seat at each of the 7 sites that will have students receiving services on that day. Also, with the Academic Surge, we are also focused on high school math. 65 of our district's high school math teachers have taken part in the special professional development sessions. In the coming month, we plan to offer some additional professional development opportunities at our high schools for our math teachers so we can equip as many of our math teachers as possible with the same useful, practical classroom strategies and tools to help those students who are struggling with geometry in our high schools. My second update this evening asks the question, what is your path? After a successful advocacy effort by this Board of Education, our administrative team, the Columbus Education Association, and other educators across Central Ohio and throughout the state, the General Assembly and Governor Kasich changed Ohio's graduation requirements late last month. As a result, our current juniors and seniors now have more options to earn a high school diploma and prove that they are ready to start a successful and productive life in college, at a job, in the military, or as an entrepreneur. As you recall, those recent changes in state law provide 5 different graduation options for our students. We are working to make sure our students in the class of 2019 and the class of 2020 and their families know about these important changes to the graduation requirements. It is now up to our students, working with our school teams and their parents, to now take ownership of these changes, to take ownership of their future, and to take ownership of identifying the pathway that they will take to graduation. The pathway that is best suited to meet their needs. The Board of Education, this administration, and others across the state have done their job. They have changed with the General Assembly and the governor the graduation requirements. Now it's up to our students, and with the support of us and their families and community members, they will find their path. Signs like this one and flyers have been sent to all of our high schools. You will see similar messages online and in the classrooms to send a clear message to all of our high school students to answer the question, what is your path to success? I would encourage our entire community to join us in asking our high school students at the grocery store, in our houses of worship, at work, and at home, what is your path to success? If they can't answer, then I'm asking you to do me a favor and please let their principal know that they don't have an answer for that question, so that we can help them answer that question. Our collective goal is that by February, every junior and senior in our district will be able to answer that question no matter who asked them and where they're being asked. Our high school principals will be meeting later this week to update their strategies for getting this important message to all of our juniors and seniors, but they're going to need our help as well. My third update is really to preview our second annual Relationship Week that's set to run February 4th through February 8th. Each day is dedicated to a theme that promotes and affirms our compassion, respect, trust, and care for one another. I will be sharing more about this week with you about each of the days as we get closer to February. But specifically on Tuesday, February the 5th, we are hoping to do something very special. On that day, I will ask that every student and staff member in our district commit to performing at least one, just one, random act of kindness. It could be anything from a small compliment given to a stranger or an inspiring gesture that could be life-changing to that individual. Just imagine, if we all took part across this district, that would generate more than 60,000 total acts of kindness in one day. I, for one, think that that would be very impressive. But more importantly, it would demonstrate the power of promoting culture and climate in all of our schools and offices across the district. It would clearly send a message of how powerful one random act of kindness can be in changing our lives. So I encourage you all to plan now for Relationship Week, February 4th through February 8th. So, to say Happy New Year may not be quite accurate in our profession, but I can tell you that the teachers, staff, and administrators are resolved to put all of our energies into our students who have less than 100 days this academic year to make 2019 the best year ever in Columbus City Schools, and to make the spirit of success live again one more year. With that, President Baker, I conclude my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Are there questions? I do believe Ms. Gibbs was first with her question.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. It sounds like we have some very exciting things coming up. I love your graphics, and I love the idea about making sure everyone knows the pathways. Can you share with us what are the 5 pathways to graduate? And just for our viewing and listening audience, so we can understand what those 5 are. And I would offer that some of these graphics should have the 5 pathways on them.
Mr. President, to Ms. Gibbs, first I would say thank you very much for acknowledging the graphics. But I will say that thanks on behalf of Mr. Scott Varner and our communications team. They have been working very hard on getting this message out, not only about the graduation requirements, but also about the academic surge and our efforts. And so they've done a fabulous job of doing that. And so I would give him the kudos, or at least accept the kudos on his behalf. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Gillison to answer your question about the 5 graduation pathways.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The additional pathways that was voted on right before Christmas break or after Christmas break, before we were at 12-point credentials, it is now 9 points for the credentials for our graduation. It was 12-point credentials, it's now 9-point credentials. And we have the 2.0 GPA, and that's the cumulative GPA that our young people have. And remember that these graduation requirements are in addition to what we already had. And that was the 18 points that you had for your end of course or AIR exams. And it was, or you could have done the remediation-free scores for your ACT, the college prep programs, or ACT or SAT. And then you had your credentialing options. And so there were additional options added. And in the next coming weeks, we're going to have parent meetings, and we're going to have grade level town meetings at each of the high schools, sharing the new options with the young people. But when schools started back, we had all of the signs in the yard, and I know that Scott intentionally didn't put the paths on there, the additional options, to stir curiosity so that when students went into the building, they're like, what's going on? What path are we talking about? And so then we can kind of generate those conversations to get the curiosity going.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I would just ask if the team could put together a cheat sheet so when the community partners and parents and grandparents ask you, we are equipped with a little bit more knowledge and say, now which one of these 5? and that we know as the adults and the nonprofits and the faith-based leaders in the community, we know what those 5 are, and maybe add them to the distribution list so that they are in the corner stores as well, in the churches, added to the announcements, added to our nonprofit partners and our after-school partners so that they too can tag team with us and ask specifically about those credentials, and maybe a page on the website where partners and parents can go, and really partners, right? So, because the parents have a pipeline to the students, but the partners, the influencers, and the other people that help support our work can go and have the information so they can advocate and really help support in our mentor programs, can help drive some of those conversations and help the student choose the best path for them.
Thank you, President Baker and Board Member Gibbs. You're right, an all-hands-in effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Ragland, and then Vice President Cole.
Thank you, President Baker. Dr. Stanford, thank you so much, and you and your team, for a wonderful report. I was very inspired. The one thing I did miss, I was writing, and so I missed the information on the high school math surge. If I can get that in some detailed form, I don't want to jump over that, and that was very important. And I just write a little too slow to keep up there. And then secondly, I was really pleased with the Random Act of Kindness initiative on February 5. At this point, I'd like to issue a challenge to Director Johnson and our friends at the City of Columbus to join us in our Random Act of Kindness initiative, because I just think the easier that we can spread that message of positivity throughout the city, the more partners we can gain through those types of initiatives, the better off we will all be as citizens here in Columbus. And so thank you so much for whoever thought of that, and please make it easy for us to spread the word about it. I think that that's a very important initiative. I think the students and the staff will be excited about it, but I want the entire city to know that this is going on, and this is something that is being driven by Columbus City Schools and our students and our families. And so kudos to you for coming up with that idea. Kudos to the team for coming up with it, and let's really, really execute on that. Thank you, President Baker.
Mr. Ragland, Mr. Vice President?
Well, my two colleagues really squared it up. I just, if I can though, we have 2-point GPA graduation rate, right? We have 18 points for EOCs. End of course. And we have remediation opportunities. And y'all have to forgive me. I got some dental work today, and my mouth is like, so we have the remediation piece for ACT, SAT. What were the other two?
The 128 hours for internship hours for our seniors, and that's to be conducted in the senior year. How many have you called off, sir?
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. So we did the 2.5 GPA, that was added, 120 internship hours, work keys and credentialing, college and career readiness for your remediation-free scores, and then your 18 points.
Got you. Okay, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing that on documents as well. We do have that on the website. Looks like that's a yes.
Is that it?
With each, okay, awesome. Thank you very much. I guess my last one, Mr. President. Thank you. For the surge actions that we're going to be doing, Mr. President, I would love it if Board Services would make sure that we had that added to our calendar so that we are well aware of it and have the opportunity to be in full participation.
If there are opportunities for board members to participate in any surge-related events, just make sure that those are on our calendars, please and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And let's move on then to our internal auditor. Madam Internal Auditor, have you anything to share with the board this evening?
Thank you, President Baker. I don't have a report, but I would like to remind the board and the listening audience that the Audit and Accountability Committee will be having their first meeting of the year, January 24th, 3:30 in the Cabinet Room. And that concludes my report, short and sweet.
Any questions for the internal auditor, colleagues? Very good. Let's move on then to our treasurer. Mr. Treasurer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Baker. Similarly, no report, but just an announcement. FAC, the Finance and Appropriations Committee, will meet a week from tomorrow, which I believe should be the 16th, if I do my calendar math correctly, 4 p.m. in this room. It's our regular monthly meeting, and we'll go from there. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the treasurer? All right, colleagues, let's take up our consent agenda. Is there a motion that we adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
And is there a second? Moved and seconded. Comments, questions on any piece of legislation contained within our consent agenda this evening, colleagues? Ms. Gibbs?
Continue to thank you to our donors who are supporting our innovative program at Devonshire through the Beck Foundation for our Project Adventure School, and to Mark Schrimmel who is supporting our school through new uniforms. Thank you for your generous support.
Absolutely. If there are no other comments, questions, concerns, Mr. Treasurer, I'll ask you to call the roll on that.
Mr. Brown? Yes. Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Yes. Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any announcements, brief points of pride you might like to share this evening? Yes, Ms. Gibbs.
Tons of points of pride, but I would like to hear from the administration on the dates for the elementary and the middle school fair. The school choice and the school lottery fairs are coming up, and if our team could let us know when those would be, I think they're coming up pretty soon.
Yes.
Come up and address that, but the fairs this year are in February. And so I'll give Mr. Varner a little bit of time to find the exact dates. They're a little bit later than we normally would have. The first one would typically be in January.
It would be in January.
Yeah, but both this year, I believe, are in February. Is it in January? Okay.
President Baker, to Ms. Gibbs, my apologies as I was quickly going through the Columbus City Schools mobile app on the calendar to find those dates to make sure. And yes, as Ms. Gillison shared, the middle and high school choice fair is on the 17th, and that will be January 17th, and that will be at Afrocentric in the Fieldhouse. And as I move to February, I see that it is February 7th is the elementary school choice fair, again at the Afrocentric Fieldhouse, and we put all of that information on our website, and we'll have additional information on the app.
And what time?
6 to 7:30.
Is it possible to get an additional half hour for parents? Especially in the elementary school fair, we have a lot of elementary schools, and it takes a while to get around to all of our booths. I want to give a big kudos to all of our schools that exhibit at the fair, but as a parent who's had to do it numerous times, an hour and a half is sometimes not enough. And so I would offer for us again to look at either a half hour earlier or add a half hour and go till 8 so that parents will have ample time. 90 minutes is really, really tough to talk to 2 or 3 different schools, and there's lines for some. I just want to offer that date and time, and for us to give parents more time to be able to get around the fairs, especially elementary schools. And our staff does an amazing job. They have a lot of information on the tables about programs, but this is one of the most important choices you're going to make. And 90 minutes it's never sufficient.
I just wanted to respond to that last piece. I know that our administrators and building administrators can determine, whether it's enough time or not and talk to our parents, and they're on the scene. But I don't want to automatically, I think we need to also consider the additional time it's asking for a whole lot, from a whole lot of staff. And, it's, when we look district-wide, it's a lot. So I think we just need to take that into account as well and let our administrative staff make the call.
That's what we're asking to do, but as a parent, it's like going to a job fair and the employers are not there long enough for you to see them. And so our number one customer are our students and our parents, and as always, our superintendent will take that information back and they'll make the best decision possible, but they need to hear the feedback that we've heard for years and they'll make the best decision. But as a parent and someone who's been to this fair numerous years, I just know, even hearing them from last year, it is a lot to get through. And they do an amazing job, and you really want to be able to get from one side of the field house to the other. The field house is huge, and it's wall to wall with our partners and with our schools.
Thank you, Board Members Gibbs and Brown. And so, administration, please accept that feedback as you do your planning. Thank you. Those are great events. I'll look forward to attending. Any other announcements or points of pride? All right, seeing none, I'll ask Vice President Cole to offer a motion.
Mr. President, thank you. It is recommended that the board recess into executive session per section 121.22G1 for the purpose of, thank you. Ohio Revised Code to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Treasurer?
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
That motion carried.
The board will now recess into executive session. I anticipate it being a rather lengthy executive session. We will return here to these chambers subsequent to those deliberations to potentially consider a resolution at that time, but it could be some hours before we return to these chambers. So having said that, colleagues, let's move upstairs. Thank you all for being here tonight. Patience. I am prepared, as we come back from executive session, to offer a motion. Whereas there is a vacancy on the Columbus City Schools Board of Education, and whereas Section 3313.11 of the Ohio Revised Code and Board Bylaw 0145 give the board the authority to appoint an individual to fill an expired term, and whereas the board has received notices of interest from individuals interested in serving the unexpired term, and whereas Board Bylaw 0145 states that the board may interview candidates to ascertain their qualifications. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Columbus City Schools Board of Education hereby states that it will interview the following candidates: Jennifer Adair, Philip Callaway, Jabril Mohammed, Dr. Tina Pierce, Brandy Slaughter, Emily White. That is the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, colleagues? Hearing none, Mr. Treasurer, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. And there's a motion to adjourn. There is a second. I don't think there's any discussion. Mr. Treasurer, would you mind calling the roll again?
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Colleagues, we stand adjourned. I thank you for your service. I will see you soon.